Week 15 of the fantasy football season. His quarterback starts at every matchup this week. Kirk Cousins, he hasn't been good since he's been in the starting lineup with Michael Penix out for the season. And this week, even in a good matchup and possibly a high-scoring game at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Kirk Cousins, he's not a quarterback I could trust. I think his better days are behind him. And obviously that Achilles injury a few seasons ago definitely took a toll on Kirk Cousins and has hurt his performance. He's a sit. Baker Mayfield to start. Mike Evans possibly returning to the lineup for this Tampa Bay Buc team. And Baker, we know he's a gamer. We know it hasn't been a great season for Baker Mayfield, but this week on a Thursday night, like I said, with Evans possibly returning and a Falcon defense that can't stop anyone, I think he could bounce back. He's a start. Baltimore Ravens at the Cincinnati Bengals, division matchup between these two teams where we've seen some high-scoring battles over the last few years. But Lamar Jackson, I don't know what's happened to him over the last month of the season. I don't think he's 100% possibly. That hamstring injury, not 100% healed for Lamar Jackson. He hasn't thrown a touchdown now in the last 3 games. So this week, I'm still going to put Jackson in the lineup. I don't know what to expect now from Lamar. This week, it's a great matchup, obviously, on paper at the Bengals, where they can't stop anyone. And we just saw Josh Allen once again go out there over 35 fantasy points. But Lamar Jackson, he's been a shell of himself over the last month of the season. But this week, I still will put him in the starting lineup. And you made the playoffs with him this far. He's a starting. Joe Burrow, he's going out there. He's putting up numbers. He's getting them rust off a little bit. Some horrible interceptions, no doubt about it, last week. But in terms of fantasy football production, he's been fine. And this week, I think Burrow goes out there in his first home game since he returned from injury and puts up numbers this week versus the Baltimore Ravens. So he's a start. Is Burrow. Biggest Raiders at the Philadelphia Eagles, Geno Smith. If he plays in this game after hurting the hand in last week's ball game, he's a sit. He's been an interception machine all season long. And this week in a tough matchup at Philadelphia, I don't expect him to go out there and do anything. And if it's Kenny Pickett in the starting lineup for this Vegas Raider team, he's a quarterback. We've seen him in Pittsburgh. He hasn't done much throughout his career. He's been a guy who don't really put a lot of points on the board. And this week in a tough spot, if he's got to step in, he will be a sit. Jalen Hurts a start. I know last week it was a bad game. A lot of bad throws, 4 interceptions in that ball game for Jalen Hurts. But it's just one bad game. And I think this Eagle team, after a bad performance and still only losing in overtime by a field goal, they're going to come back this week, losing 3 in a row. They got to stop the losing streak here. And the Vegas Raiders is a team to get right against this week. So I think Jalen Hurts and this offense bounces back. And he's a start this week for me in this matchup versus the Raiders. Arizona Cardinals at the Houston Texans. Jacoby Brissett, it's been a great season for him in terms of fantasy football. It seems like weekly he's getting 250 yards, 300 yards, 2-3 touchdowns per game. But this week, a very tough matchup at the Houston Texans. I know Arizona, they could be chasing points in this one, but to me, it could be a very long day. We just saw Houston go into Kansas City and shut down Patrick Mahomes in that ball game where Mahomes couldn't get anything going. They got a lot of pressure on him. A couple turnovers they caused in that game as well. So Brissett, to me, this week at best, is a fringe option. And CJ Stroud, I would have some confidence. I thought last week he made some good plays. It was a cold weather ball game out there where Houston's not used to much, obviously, and it's only his second game back. But this week, back home, indoor game, Arizona defense that can't stop anyone. We just saw the Rams go over 40 points versus them. I think CJ Stroud this week, you can have a little confidence in him and start him. Los Angeles Chargers at the Kansas City Chiefs, Justin Herbert to start. I know last week it wasn't a great game for Herbert, but he still had 66 yards on the ground, which saved his fantasy day. 139 passing in the air with a touchdown and an interception. So this week it is a tough matchup at the Kansas City Chiefs, one of the better defenses in the league. We know Herbert's not 100% with the wrap on the hand that he had surgery on last week with a fracture in his hand, but I think Justin Herbert this week, he could go out there, and we saw early in the season have a great game versus Kansas City defense. He's a start. And Patrick Mahomes a start. Last week, a bad game. Obviously, one of the worst games of Mahomes' career. Threw 3 interceptions in that ball game. But this Charger defense is nowhere near, in my opinion, that Houston Texan defense. So Mahomes back home, once again, you rarely see him have 2 bad games in a row at Arrowhead. And this week could be a potential high-scoring game between these 2 division rivals. He's a start this week. Buffalo Bills at the New England Patriots. This is great quarterback matchup between 2 AFC East rival quarterbacks going at it. Josh Allen last week, a monster ball game. Will this team back into it, even though the defense made some monster plays in that one as well? But Josh Allen, he's a stud quarterback. He's going to go out there. He's going to put points on the board. And this week, obviously, with their division hopes on the line, if they lose this, Buffalo they can't win the division. I think Allen's really going to push it this week, and he's an easy start. Drake May, an easy start. Him and Matthew Stafford, the MVP favorites right now, in my opinion. And Drake May, what a second year it's been for him. He's spreading that football out all over the field. He's making big plays. If it's been Stephon Diggs, Hunter Henry, Kayshon Boutte, he's just finding his players, and he's been a mobile quarterback as well, where he could give you some rushing appeal. So he's a start. New York Jets at the Jacksonville Jaguars. If it's going to be Tyrod Taylor, if it's going to be Justin Fields, if one of those guys could play in this game, where last week Taylor went out with a groin injury and Fields wasn't available, that had to go to Brady Cook. And obviously you're not going to trust Brady Cook in a playoff game for fantasy owners. And this Jaguar team, especially defensively, have buckled down over the last few weeks. So no matter who the quarterback is, and we know this Jet offense, besides pretty much Breece Hall, a lot of young players and unproven guys in this offense, they're all sits. Trevor Lawrence to start. Good matchup this is. Once again, New York Jets defense can't stop anyone. We saw the Dolphins go out there, a bull cold weather team, and they just took it to the Jets early and often in last week's game. So Trevor Lawrence, this Jacksonville team now, first place, playing great football. He's a start. Commanders at the New York Giants, Jaden Daniels, there's a chance he possibly could play this week. Well, I don't think it's a great decision, but what do I know? They're 3-10 on the season, and you're going to put your franchise quarterback out there coming off a dislocated elbow and then re-aggravating it a little bit in last week's game. I just don't think it's a smart thing. But if Daniels does start in this ball game, he's a start. New York can't stop anyone. And Daniels, even at 70% at best maybe, still could go out there versus defense and put up numbers. And Marcus Mariota, to me, is a fringe option, is Mariota. Mariota's definitely had some decent games. He knows this offense well. And you got two good receivers, obviously, in Deebo Samuel and Terry McLaurin. Those guys are going to go out there and make plays versus a bad defense. So Mariota, to me, would be a fringe option if he starts in this one. And Jackson Dart, it's been a good season in terms of fantasy football. Obviously, in real life, this Giant team 2-11 on the season. It's been another tough year. But Jackson Dart, he's a quarterback that's going to go out there. He's fearless. He's going to take big hits. We saw it in New England where he just took a monster hit and he went airborne out of bounds in that one. But Dart this week, back home for New York, coming off bye, and a bad Commander team coming in, and he has great rushing upside as well. He's a start. Cleveland Browns at the Chicago Bears, Shedeur Sanders, he's a fringe option. He's the starting quarterback the rest of the season. And to be honest, he's looked like the best quarterback in that Browns quarterback room. With Joe Flacco starting early in the season, Dylan Gabriel just didn't have it to me. And at least Sanders, he could make a few things happen and make plays. But this week in a matchup at Chicago, obviously Soldier Field, only his fourth career start. Tough place to play, and this bad defense for the most part has been playing better football obviously over the last month of the season, except last week giving up 28 points. So Sanders to me is a fringe option, and Caleb Williams a fringe option. I know this Brown team gave up 31 points. I know they lost to one of the worst teams in the league in the Titans, who are 2-11 on the season, but Caleb Williams, he hasn't looked right over the last few weeks. Too much rolling out, too much looking to run on the run, throw the football, and he's taking big hits and holding on to it too much. So this week, big trouble obviously for Caleb Williams when you got the best pass rusher in the game and Myles Garrett coming at you every play. So I think this week, in a bad weather game for Caleb, it's going to be a fringe option for him. Carolina Panthers at the Saints, Bryce Young, he's a start. He had a big game a few weeks ago. I know he's better at home than he is on the road, but this week an indoor game at New Orleans is a plus, and this team getting a little bit healthier coming off the bye week, where we know this New Orleans Saints defense really can't stop anyone. Even pulled off the upset victory in last week's ball game at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So Bryce Young, to me, I actually would have some confidence in him this week and start him. And Tyler Shuck, he's definitely improved over the last 2 months of the season since he's been inserted into the starting lineup for this New Orleans Saints team. And obviously, Chris Olave's been solid this year as the number one wide receiver. Juwan Johnson's making plays, and I think Devin Neal's been a better fit over the last couple weeks in this backfield than Alvin Kamara, where he's a physical back in between the tackles more than Kamara. So this week, though, even with all those factors, Carolina, a solid defense for the most part this season. He's a sit. Detroit Lions at the Rams, two quarterbacks who got traded each other a few seasons ago. And obviously Stafford won a Super Bowl in that time, and Goff's definitely playing great football, but they haven't gotten over the hump, is Detroit. So Goff a start, one of the better quarterbacks in the league, where him and Stafford up there amongst the league leaders in touchdown passes. And Jared Goff out there, he's putting up his numbers. Jahmyr Gibbs now more involved in the receiving games, helps his numbers as well with yard after catch and his explosive playmaking ability. So this week at the Rams, his former team, you know he's going to want to stick it to them a little bit, he's a starter. Matthew Stafford, like I said earlier, him and Drake May, 2 MVP leading candidates in my opinion, having a monster year, 35 touchdowns on the season. And when you got Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams, it makes everything easier, so he's an easy start. And now to the Indianapolis Colts, Riley Leonard, we'll see if he plays in this ball game. He got banged up last week. They don't know if he's going to give it a go. He will be a sit anyway. Brett Rypien, he might have to be the starter in this one. Or must I say, Phillip Rivers possibly might be the starter as well for this Indianapolis Colts team. Where they're bringing him in is Phillip Rivers tomorrow for a visit to see where he's at, even at 44 years old, just turning. Is Phillip Rivers, if he could come in and possibly be an emergency quarterback or even the starter going into this game, where he was with the Colts, and obviously he's familiar with Steichen, where he was the offensive coordinator for the Chargers when Rivers was there. So with those factors, you don't want to trust any of these quarterbacks. They're all sit. Sam Darnold to start. Last week, good bounce-back game. Him and JSN had a nice rapport once again. 3 touchdowns in that one. And this week, this could be a ball game where this offense has great field position all game long. So Darnold back home for Seattle, he's a start. Green Bay Packers at the Broncos, Jordan Love, he's a fringe option. Love once again, big game last week, but that was a lot of Christian Watson, yard after catch and breakaway, game-breaking ability in that one versus the Chicago Bears defense. And this is a tougher matchup versus one of the best defenses in the league. So I think this could be a run-heavy game where we could see bad weather, obviously mid-December in Denver. So to me, Jordan Love, he's a fringe option, and Green Bay anyways a run-first team, and Bo Nix a fringe option. His numbers the last couple weeks haven't been great. Bo Nix, 15, 20 fantasy points. Their run-first team, their defensive team as well. And these cold weather games, you're going to see more run than the football, obviously, and rightfully so if it's heavy winds or bad rain or snow, obviously, than passing the football. Tennessee Titans at the 49ers, Cam Ward, it's just been a bad rookie season all around, unfortunately. I know they won the game last week, but that was on Tony Pollard going out there making plays, and the defense made a few plays in that one as well. So this week, Cam Ward in a tough matchup at the 49ers is it. Brock Purdy a start, good matchup. Tennessee coming in. Their defense can't stop anyone. We saw the Browns put up 29 versus them last week, and Shedeur throw for a big ball game. So Purdy coming off the bye and more healthier this week, and this team as a whole getting healthier. He's a start. Minnesota Vikings at the Cowboys, J.J. McCarthy, he's a sit for me in this ball game. McCarthy, I know he had a big game last week, but besides that, he's only had one big game going back to the first week of the season at the Chicago Bears. So this week, I know Dallas gave up 44 points last week. Defense has been hit or miss, even with obviously reinforcements and the trades. He's a sit. Dak Prescott start each and every week. Last week wasn't a great game for Dak, but still went for 376, a touchdown, 2 interceptions. So this week with Minnesota coming in, I think they're going to get their points as Dallas in this one. He's a start. And Miami Dolphins at the Steelers, Sunday Night Football. Tua, he's a sit. He's not really been a fantasy option. This has been a run-first heavy team, especially within the 10-yard line in the red zone for this Miami Dolphin team. And this Steelers defense last week had a good ball game, I thought, versus Lamar in that offense. And Tua, like I said, haven't seen much from him all season long. And in the cold weather ball game, I don't see him doing much. He's a sit. And Aaron Rodgers a start. Rodgers turned the clock back last week. Some patented throws, escaping, obviously, pass rushers, making big plays in a hostile environment in Baltimore. And this week with Miami coming in, I think Aaron Rodgers will go out there and have a nice ball game. So that's quarterback start, sit every matchup for Week 15 of the fantasy football season.